All right, it's time for another edition of Silver and Black Today, a Believe podcast. Do us a favor, you don't already subscribe, do so wherever you get your audio. If you're watching us on video, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, and also hit that notifications bell so you know every time I'm back, we have a new video. We certainly appreciate you being back with us, Raider Nation. You hear that, Raider Nation? That's the sound of veterans rolling into camp. Woo! Joining their rookie teammates, as we talked about last week, the beginning of the first training camp of the Kubiak era. And what's the story? Well, the Raiders franchise tells us that they believe they finally have the coach QB combo to build something around. Kubiak, Spytek, Tom Brady, they're also running the football operations. So it's exciting time, right? This is the most, in my view, again, Kubiak with Spytek and Tom Brady running the football ops. This is the most consequential stretch of Kubiak's early tenure. That's not hype, really. I mean, if you think about it, because look, what did they do? The roster genuinely turned over this offseason. So what's the verdict on today's show? It's that the optimism, I know you've heard it before, it's going to be different. When it wasn't different, back to the old Raiders. But guess what? The optimism is real, but it's July optimism, right? And we know how that goes. But this is different, I believe. So we're going to get into it and talk about a couple subjects today with camp. Of course, we'll get a lot more news as camp goes on. Also want to remind you, be a part of the show later in the week on Thursday. Get your calls in today or tomorrow. The earlier, the better to get yourself on. 702-900-7869 is how to get into the Raider Nation Court of Public Opinion. You are prosecuting your case with me and with the audience. So 702-900-7869, or you can send me your video. Got another video from Tarek for this week. Be like him. Send me some videos. Okay? Send them to mail@silverandblacktoday.com. That's mail@silverandblacktoday.com. Tell me what you're thinking. I think maybe next week, since camp will be really rolling, might get on and do a live show on Thursday night next week. So let's play that one by ear, but I'll let you know for sure. But we're going to get into a couple different subjects. We'll cover roster. We'll cover the signing of Mendoza, all that stuff in just a minute. But I'm going to start in a place that I think people have just sort of not forgotten about, but I think that they have really looked at and said, you know what, we don't have to worry about that. We're all excited. We like the new coach. But when we look at Kubiak, with the Kubiak hire, I want to ask the question, what did the Raiders actually get? And yes, we have to wait until the season starts and obviously plays out before we have the full answer. But in my view, and others who've echoed the same sentiment, this is really the most credible offensive hire the Raiders have made in years, with one asterisk. Yes, I'm going to play it down the middle. I know for those of you with the silver and black glasses on, lens glasses on, you're seeing nothing but a rosy picture. And I get that. Again, optimism, yes. But I just want to rewind and just to rewind you and kind of remind you, I got to spit it out, of what you're getting with Kubiak as head coach, because I think it's significant. Of course, last season, Kubiak was the OC up in Seattle, Super Bowl winning team last year. You know that. I don't have to tell you, but I just did anyway. It was his first and only season in Seattle with Mike McDonald. His offense in Seattle, this is what's exciting, third in the NFL in scoring at 28.4. Yeah, 28.4 points per game. And you look at what they were able to do last year with the 12th man up there in Seattle. They set a franchise records for points with 483 and point differential at a positive 191. Nothing to laugh at. As far as elevating quarterback play, which is significant not only with Kirk Cousins in town, but also with the development of one Mr. Fernando Mendoza, Sam Darnold made his second Pro Bowl under him, and Jackson Smith-Njigba led the league in receiving, right? We talked about that thin Raiders receiving room, but he had 1,793 yards, and he was a first-team All-Pro, Offensive Player of the Year. That's not bad in that Kubiak offense. Now, do they have a Smith-Njigba with the Raiders? Don't think so, but you never know. A lot of people excited about Jalen Naylor, and I get that he could come and ball out. If he does, the Raiders are going to be a lot better. And what about the running game, right? The running game, so many of you have told me you're excited about under Kubiak. The running game numbers that matter the most. Seattle went from 28th in rushing to 10th. That was in 2024 to 10th in 2025. So that's Super Bowl run under Kubiak. He fixed a run game in 1 year. Now that's very exciting, and I get it. A lot of my folks out there, a lot of my friends in Raider Nation, including my good friends down at Raider Nation Radio, Murph, Swag, Michelle, they're very excited about that. They really believe that with Ashton Jeanty, with that running game, the Raiders are going to be able to make up for any deficiencies in the passing game. We'll talk about that. We've already talked about it at length, but we'll get into it as camp rolls on. So I'm going to give you my early take on Kubiak as we head into this camp. Now, on paper, I want to say this again, on paper, the best offensive mind to walk into this building in a long time is my opinion. But there's a but there, yes. Here's an honest counter to that, because on this show, as you guys know, I give you my opinion, my verdict, but I also give you the counter arguments. And here's an honest counter and a question. You look at Klint Kubiak's resume. This is a bounce around resume so far. For those of you in the working world, sometimes people get dinged. I know it's less these days with absolutely no loyalty in corporate America anymore, but you see a lot of people with a lot of jobs in a short amount of time. And that's Klint Kubiak. He was the Vikings OC in 2021, Broncos in 22, Niners in 23, then the Saints in 24. So you look at it again, Vikings OC in 21, Broncos 22, Niners in 23, and the Saints in 24. Now, again, you could argue too that is something of, hey, the guy's a good young coach. And I don't disagree with that. I think that is his talent coming through and the fact that he was in demand. But Vegas is his sixth stop since 2021. One full season as a play caller at each of the last few. The track record is real. I'm not saying it's not, but it's thin at any one place. Now, maybe that doesn't matter to you right now because, look, as I said, the best offensive mind to come into the Raider organization in a long time. You could argue, again, a young and in-demand coach is why, and that's valid. So I hear you on that. Yet, I hear many of my Raider Nation listeners talk about the excitement around run first, Shanahan guy label. And that might be a little overstated as well. So not only his stops, the number of them, and how long is he in Vegas? Could he be in Vegas for a little while and then leave? Now, with the young quarterback, with Tom Brady there, with all the things that are happening so positive with this organization, you think, no, Kubiak's going to be here for a while. You just never know anymore, but it's an open question in my mind. But let's look at his track record when it comes to the running game, because specifically, I keep hearing a lot of this, again, in the discussion around the excitement leading into training camp about the running game. His Minnesota and New Orleans offenses actually finished outside the top 10 in designed run rate. Now, we're talking about designed run rate because that is what we expect the Raiders to unfurl on the AFC West and the NFL this year. Seattle leaned on the run more than his own history did. If you look at the numbers last year on that path to the Super Bowl, they did. They leaned on the run a lot more. And many of you brought that up when I was talking about the Raiders wide receiver room and the fact that they didn't have any true number one. So I get it. They had to. And so many of you are thinking, well, if the Raiders are in the same kind of position that the Seahawks were last year without, although they, like I said, they had Jackson Smith and Jigba, then I get it, right? So the question isn't, will he run? To me, not, he's going to run. They're going to run. This team's going to run. Ashton Jeanty's a star. Love Ashton Jeanty. But it's which Kubiak shows up when the personnel isn't Seattle's. So what's the tell on this? I was thinking through this, and to me, how will we know which Kubiak landed in Vegas is the question. And I came up with my answer, and I want you guys to tell me. You can leave comments on YouTube or wherever you're watching us, or if you're listening to us, Spotify, wherever, or call in, send your video in. If the Vegas run game is top 12 by midseason behind this rebuilt line, And there's questions about the offensive line. I know that, but it got better. The hire's working. There's no question. If it's bottom 10 again, and I hope it's not. It's no fun to cover that either. The scheme wasn't the fix, right? Again, if it's bottom 10, again, the scheme wasn't the fix. So that's where I land on that one. And again, I'm not trying to be negative. There's just open questions here. I'm not going to give you just rainbows and unicorns. I'm going to give it to you straight. I'm going to tell you what I'm just thinking through. And again, I'm fine if you think I'm wrong and if you got a different point of view on it. Again, share it. I'm happy to have that conversation. Now, the other part of the equation I want to talk about with this 2026 Raiders team is what they've done to build this roster, specifically John Spytek and his little friend Tom Brady. They spent like a contender. There's no question. The question is whether they spent like a smart one. Spytek spent more than any team in the league in free agency. It's just true. That's not a rumor. That's the ledger. $281 million. They spent the money. They had the money. All of you talked about salary cap last year and the cap space they had and John Spytek using it. It just comes down to whether he used it properly. I tend to think right now, yes, all the signs point to yes, but again, that's July optimism. We have to see once they get on the field in September. But the headliner of all that was Tyler Linderbaum. Now, he is now the highest paid center in football, and he's going to anchor that interior. That's a big deal, right? That is a big deal because the Raiders have struggled there. Remember Andre James and all the things back and forth. You had JPJ going in at center. Not that he couldn't do it, but it just didn't work out with Pete Carroll because he had some kind of bone in contention with the player. But that's important. So you have Linderbaum on the interior as the anchor. Then you have O-line continuity. Colton Miller outside, back healthy, hopefully. Jackson Powers Johnson on the inside, Linderbaum in the middle. On paper, this is for real a line for the first time in a while. Okay. So I like what they're doing. And I know there's question marks. I know we don't know yet. And so it's not that I'm skeptical about the line. It's just that you have to see them perform. And you all know, because you've been through it so many times with line rebuilds or patchwork, mostly patchwork. And that is, do they gel? Because that offensive line has to gel. You have a new quarterback back there. Luckily, with Kirk Cousins, you got an experienced guy who's run this offense at the highest level and done it very successfully. So to me, all the signs point to the green, right? They all point to that offensive line being something of a much improved line that's going to help not only with pass protection, but again, with real run blocking. Imagine that for Ashton Jeanty. Doesn't have to just create on his own. Then the second thing is the Max Crosby saga. Everybody's glad Max Crosby's back. He was traded to Baltimore. The deal collapsed in 4 days, back in silver and black. We all know that story. Hopefully he's in silver and black for the remainder of his career, but he's coming off-season knee surgery. Now, he's expected ready for camp, so we'll see how he rolls out there. But the Max Crosby, and this is where I tend to be a guy very much focused on the positive end of Max Crosby. Yes, some concern with the injury just to see how he responds and comes back. Right. It's not like he's 40 years old, but he's been playing a lot. He's had injuries. So we got to see what he does and how fast he's able to be the Max Crosby everyone expects him to be. So to me, that's one of the questions around Max Crosby. Now, I just mentioned Kirk Cousins, and we have to talk about the QB room spend. Cousins is on a 1-year bridge deal. Plus, they picked number one, and they took a quarterback. That's money and capital at the position in the same offseason, right? So they spent on the free agent Kirk Cousins. They spent on the rookie Fernando Mendoza. They have the current. They have the future. That's something we haven't really seen from this Raiders team. Now, you can bring up Aiden O'Connell. He'll play into this, and I'll talk about him in a little bit. But he's not a guy who's going to compete to be the starter, nor is he the future of the Raiders. Doesn't mean he doesn't have a future with the Raiders. He could end up sticking with this team. He could be traded. Who knows what'll happen with the Irish Cannon, right? But They spent on that room. They spent on that room. And to me, not only did they spend on the room with the veteran to come in and be the bridge, but they also spent on the rookie. Okay. They have their quarterback of the future, hopefully. I believe they do. We'll have to see how it plays out. But in all of this, my verdict on this really is the smart money they spent was on the offensive line. You don't develop a rookie QB or unlock Jeanty behind a bad line. You just don't. They fixed the thing that's failed every recent rebuild, in Vegas and Oakland, right? They fixed exactly what they needed to do. Now, they have to perform, but they did smart moves. They spent money. Linderbaum is a monster, the highest paid center in the league, and they wanted to wrap up that interior. They have JPJ, who they got 2 years ago. This is a guy who I think is going to have a breakout year too. The gambles here, really, what is it? And to me, a minor gamble, at least that's my glass half full. Half full. Glass half full, not empty. Point of view. The gamble's Crosby's health and age, plus how much of that free agency spend is win now versus foundational, right? Because yes, some of those guys can help right away, and then there's foundational, as I talked about, Mendoza. Spending the most doesn't mean building the best, by the way. There's plenty of cap-held teams that have led the league in spending, right? So you can lead the league in spending. I mean, you see this in all sports. Teams go out and spend a ton of money. Doesn't always translate to performance on the field. So we're going to have to see how that goes. But I like what they did. Where I want more is the front seven behind Crosby. And the receiver room is young and unproven. That's where they do it. But they bet big on the trenches and the QB and they left some rooms thin. They left some rooms thin, I should say. So I get that. You can't fix it all at one time. I said this back when we were covering the draft, right? When Mo and I were covering the draft. And that was, you just can't fix it all in 1 year. That's why, God bless you. I know a lot of you out there still think the Raiders can make the Super Bowl this year. But that's why I said, look, this isn't a 1 year rebuild. This is something that you have to build the stronger foundation. You can't build a house on sand, right? You got to have that concrete foundation. And so I think in year one of this rebuild, that's what they did. And to me, the tell here, if this line keeps Cousins clean, the offensive line, and gets Jeanty to 1,000+ yards this offseason, this season, then the offseason grades out, right? The offseason grades out great. If Jeanty's stuck under 4 yards a carry again, 4.0, a carry again, then guess what? Then we'll have some questions. But look at Ashton Jeanty. I think behind this line, he's going to excel. And if he is under that 4 yards a carry again, the fixed line was a story we told ourselves in July, right? That maybe I'm wrong again. Just as like I thought Pete Carroll coming to the Raiders were adults coming in the room. I was wrong. So we'll see. And again, it's camp. Your guess is as good as mine. I'm trying to be as educated as possible about it, but that's where it is. And I think that whole point about Jeanty, I know a lot of you talking about him making up with the running game and Brock Bowers and all of that, and not so concerned with the wide receiver room. But I do think Ashton Jeanty is the swing piece that maybe nobody's talking about enough, right? Ashton Jeanty is the swing piece nobody's talking about enough. Let me just make the statement. and that's something that, to me, is a big deal, right? Because Ashton Jeanty, freed up behind a better offensive line, is going to create problems for Raiders opponents. You think about year two. He finished 25 yards shy of 1,000 as a rookie behind a line that couldn't run block. Kubiak has said he wants him as a true bell cow back. That's the role offense's engine. I mean, that's the role, the whole offense's engine in this scheme, right? It's about that running game. We've talked about it. You've talked about it, and that's what it is. This is exactly why the Linderbaum signing was so big. That's why the Linderbaum signing matters. Kubiak's Seattle run game, if you recall, as well was something that came about because they needed to rely on it. Yes. But Kubiak's Seattle run game jump 28 to 10th is the blueprint I believe they're using here. There's no question about that, right? I mean, they went on to win the Super Bowl behind that blueprint. Jeanty, if you look at it, Jeanty is the back Seattle didn't have. They didn't have a back like Ashton Jeanty. So to me, the verdict here really is if Kubiak is who the resume says, Jeanty is a 1,200-yard back this year. The talent was never the question. The blocking was. Now, some of you out there disagreed with taking Jeanty where they took him at number 6. But all you had to do is watch the Raider games last year, and you saw that it was the blocking. Blocking was terrible. So this is the cleanest cause and effect on the roster. Better line plus Kubiak run scheme plus a back this good should equal production. If it doesn't, something's wrong with the premise. So then you ask yourself, how are we going to tell, Scott? How are we going to tell if you were right about this and about Jeanty and all that? Well, the tell. Genty's yard before contact. His yards before contact. If that number jumps from last year and the line and the scheme are real, if he's still creating everything himself, nothing's changed. That's just the bottom line. So it sounds elementary. It sounds simple. And you're saying, well, Scott, you're just saying it. And again, I'm not a deep X's and O's tape guy. It's not me. But this is how we're going to tell. Can that line help Ashton Jeanty create? He doesn't have to create on his own. He doesn't have to be the magician he's been, having to just find his own way. And again, he almost hit 1,000 yards last year behind one of the worst, if not the worst. Tennessee was very bad as well. But behind one of the worst lines in the NFL. So that's where we're at. That's the tell. That's how we'll know how things are progressing. Is there something I missed? Let me know. But let's get into some of the other news too for the rest of the show here as we talk about the Raiders heading into camp today. And that is the number 1 pick assigned. Yay. Paid. And for now, the backup. And again, as you guys know from the last couple of weeks, I think that's the right call. Mendoza signed his fully guaranteed 4-year, $57.27 million rookie deal Thursday, the day the rookies reported. Now, there are people in the national media. Some of you were really worried. Oh, Ashton Jeanty, camp starts today. Excuse me, Ashton Jeanty. Fernando Mendoza. He's not signed. Do the Raiders have a problem? Of course, that was just the national media trying to capitalize on the clicks generated by the best fan base in football. And that, of course, is Raider Nation. Of course, it was all crap. Early signing bonus standoff is now resolved, right? If that's what you want to call it. The early signing bonus standoff now resolved. So there you go. Signed, sealed, delivered. Fernando Mendoza is in camp as he was supposed to be, and he's ready to go to start developing into the quarterback that this franchise needs. And I told you in the pre-camp episode, Mendoza does not start week 1. Cousins is the starter. So you'll see lots of stories. Oh, competition. Don't buy it. Mendoza takes over at midseason if he earns it. That's holding. That opinion's holding. The national and local reporting, for the most part, now matches it. Cousins is on a 1-year bridge deal specifically to buy Mendoza time. I mean, it's straight. You could see it. This was the plan from the day they signed Cousins. It's just the Cousins Kubiak history is why the timeline is slow by design. 12,000 plus yards and 94 touchdowns together in previous stops. That's Kirk Cousins and his coach. Kubiak trusts him. I mean, there's no question. He's not benching that in August for a rookie. Okay? He's not benching that in August for a rookie. But, again, I'm not just hedging here. I like to point out both sides. There is one nuance to point out. If you remember back on Media Day in the summer, Kubiak said he'd get Cousins, Mendoza, and O'Connell first-team reps, and that he'd be comfortable with any of the three starting. Of course, that's coach speak, but it's the public posture. It's the public posture for him. And yes, I understand not only the local beat writers, but also national media. They said this. They said Mendoza impressed at OTAs and minicamp. The org keeps repeating, develop without rushing, consistent with everything I've said. There's no hurry for Fernando Mendoza with Kirk Cousins there. Now, injuries, things like that can change. I get it. If something changes, what do you watch for? And I want to reiterate this because I shared this with you when we talked about Mendoza a couple weeks ago. Watch the rep distribution and the preseason series with the ones. If Mendoza is taking first-team reps in a real rotation by mid-August, or gets a series with the starters in preseason game 2, maybe the timeline is accelerating. If he's locked into third string reps and clipboard duty through August, Cousins is starting deep into the season. That to me is the tell. My verdict says the second one. Cousins starts. Mendoza's first meaningful action comes after the bye. That's week 13 at the earliest. And again, that's barring any unforeseen change, just massive acceleration or injury. Pretty simple. Kind of exhausted that argument, but I want to reiterate it because you're going to see a slew. Fernando Mendoza is a media darling, and that's good for Raider Nation, but it's also bad for Raider Nation because you're going to see headline after headline because it creates clicks. It creates downloads, whatever you want to say. So you're going to see that. Okay? But don't buy too much into it. And as much as I would love to see Fernando Mendoza go out there in his rookie year and be an MVP candidate, I don't think it happens. And I don't think you need it to happen. You don't need to rush this talent. Now, a lot of people who analyze quarterbacks say, well, he's not going to be a generational talent, Fernando Mendoza. I think they could prove him wrong. I think he's proved people wrong his entire career. He did it last year in Indiana, winning the Heisman Trophy, winning the national championship. So to me, I'm not betting against the kid. I'm betting on the kid to be a great NFL quarterback. I really believe that. And can he be the guy who takes this Raider organization back to the promised land? It's hard to say. Winning a Super Bowl is a difficult thing, but I think this team is not going to rush him because they want him. They understand the investment made, number one, but number two, they understand how important developing their franchise quarterback is for the future success of the franchise. So I just don't see any circumstance where they gamble and try to rush him. Right? Okay, so we got that straight. That's my verdict. You can take it or leave it, disagree or agree. I'm fine either way. And I appreciate it. All right, so now, as we get to this, I want to close out the show with this point. The Raiders, the Raiders organization appears to be more stable than it's been in years. But stability isn't a record, right? You can have a stable franchise, doesn't mean they're winning on the field, doesn't mean the moves work out, doesn't mean the draft picks are coming through. So we'll have to see. They enter camp with the best offensive hire in years. I'm going to double down on that. The line spend was the smart money, and Mendoza sits until he's ready. This is the first Raiders offseason in a while, and I've been covering the team for 9 years, that had a plan that you could actually trace. You can trace the plan on down the line. Coach, line, QB of the future in order. All came together. How many times can you say that? If I'm missing a year where you felt they did that same thing and it just didn't work out, let me know. Now, with camp and with preseason, we'll get a sense for how it's all coming together. I mean, that's it. The proof is always in the pudding. I've said it before. I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it. Because we got several weeks here until we get to September, and this team rolls out against Miami. Right? But as someone covering the team, I'm excited to see how it comes together. I'm excited to see what these moves do for this team. I'm excited to see which Klint Kubiak we get. Is it the Klint Kubiak who bounced around and had a run game that was good but not great? Or is it the Klint Kubiak we saw last year with the Seattle Seahawks, right, that really came on and was able to put together a team that went on to win a Super Bowl? We'll see. Again, let me know what you think. You know what I think. Call, send in your videos. The Raider Nation Court of Public Opinion is back later this week. Call in 702-900-7869. Email mail@silverandblacktoday.com. And don't forget, go see the Raiders. If you're in Las Vegas or you're in the area, Southern California, Northern California, open camp practices are on August 2nd, 3rd, 7th, and 8th at the facility. And then, of course, at Allegiant, August 11th. Go see it and tell me what you think in person. Nothing beats the eye test. Now, we can get overly hyped players in shorts, even when they get into pads, until they get on the field against opposing NFL competition. It can be difficult sometimes to see how things are going, but I want to hear what you have to say. If you're going to camp, if you're going to see them in Henderson, or if you're going to see them at Allegiant Stadium on the 11th of August, let me know what you think and call in, drop your video, send me your comments on YouTube or wherever you may be. So I appreciate that. It's going to be good. Later in the week, we're going to get to your phone calls, the Raider Nation Court of Public Opinion, and the comments. I'm pulling comments from social media as well. So if you're too shy, I hope you're not all too shy. We love the callers here. We also love the videos. But if you comment on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, wherever it is you comment, I'll pull them in as I did last week as well. So make sure you do that. As always, I got to remind you, subscribe to the audio show. If you don't listen to us when you're working out or on the way in the car or the train or the bus, however you get to work, or on your walk with the dog or your walk or bike ride, whatever it may be, make sure you subscribe to us. We are a Believe podcast. You can find it wherever you get your audio, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, doesn't matter. You'll find us there as well. If you're watching us, whether it be on YouTube, Rumble, X, wherever, make sure you subscribe on YouTube, particularly our YouTube channel, The Most Robust. Have a lot of shorts there as well that are doing pretty good. People seem to like them. Make sure you subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, and don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you know when we have a new video. And we'll do something live pretty soon. I said that last week. I will continue to say that. Love interacting with you all live during the chats. We'll do some more free form this year as well, switching things up. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of Silver and Black Today, I Believe podcast. Thank you all for being with me. Excited. Camp is in session. Get some real news, get some real performance cues from everybody covering the team, and we will share those with you here. I'm Scott Branson. This has been Silver and Black Today. We'll see everybody next time. Bye-bye now.